Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah, Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Dear Iman Islamic TV viewers and friends and fans, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I hope everybody is fine and God's blessing be to your house. And thanks for watching our show's reflection show. And in the past, we had programs like interviews, and this time also we are fortunate to have a special guest which is sitting in front of us. Inshallah, we will talk about the most important issues that our family, our lives facing these days. We have our special guest, which is Dr.Tamer. And Shiekh Tamer, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you back to the show that you came last year, and you're our guest tonight, and actually it's today, and it's an honor to be with you all the time. And so dear viewers, we want to say a few things to the viewers before we start this other conversation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأكمل التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا ونبينا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My respected brothers and sisters, it is very good to be back here with Brother Habib in this blessed location, in this blessed town and city, and I'm very glad that we were given the chance by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to address you today. And we ask Him to make the right words come out of our mouths, to touch your hearts, the hearts of your families, and bring us closer to Him, make us better human beings, better Muslims, and reflect the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on everyone and everything around us. Ameen.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. So we had conversation last night during the little time that we spent together, and the beginning there was the main thing that crossed my mind to ask you today in this show. It's what we're facing, the Ummah is facing, especially we're living in the West, and our new generation, our kids, and the way that technology and the environment turned to is totally different. Even from 10 years from now, when we compare it, it's totally different. I wonder just if you can focus on that, and what's your view about the situation, what's your advice for the families and the one they raising their children according to Islamic laws and faith. So I open the discussion from here. You can pick it up.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. To be very honest, this is a very very important question and an urgent matter that every parent is facing at his or her home, and we're seeing it in our schools with our children, with our grandchildren. We're seeing it even at our own work environments. Wherever we work, people are now, the word to use is drowned in technology. It's not using technology, it is being submerged in technological tools. This is not really a local problem or a national problem, and it is also not a Muslim problem. This is a real challenge that humanity is facing. If we examine the human evolvement and history of mankind, certainly the past 100, 150 years have been completely different with from the 10,000, 8,000, 10,000 years before. And I may say that the last 20 years, and particularly the last 10 years, we are in 2018 now, things have changed quite a lot even. What is common between all these changes is the rate of acceleration. So we're getting a higher rate of acceleration. And I always say and joke with my companions that acceleration is always a sign of going downhill, actually. It's not going uphill. Things go faster and faster and pick up more momentum as they go downhill. The challenge that technology poses to humanity and Muslims as part of that human race are enormous. And really the challenge of that is simply because of the unclear boundaries between the benefits and the harms of these tools. For example, if there is a new tool or invention that is being used by people around the world, and it has apparent and manifest hazards, dangers, it would be very easy to speak about it. However, the technological, particularly the digital era we live in right now, on its face has a lot of benefits and a lot of values. It makes things easier, it makes communication easier, it makes people connect, supposedly connect more. So who can object to that? Very difficult for you to stand up and say to people that communication, connection, facilitation of the flow of information are bad things. If you stand up and say this, everybody would be rising up against such argument. And that's actually the problem. However, we as Muslims have an obligation towards the world, towards the entire human race. Islam being the embodiment of all the divine religions. And when I mention by Islam, I always like to say that I'm not referring to what people call a 1400-year-old religion. Islam started with our father Adam, and the first of his children to call his followers Muslims was our father Abraham. And from there, all the prophets that came were Muslims, and their followers were Muslims. And the modern day Muslims should be the representation of all that blessed caravan of light of prophets and followers. And because Islam is a religion of spirit and body, both of them, it has enabled its followers throughout history to have an in-depth look at matters. Not just a flat look at the superficial face of the facts, but we have an inner aspect of our perception of things as well. And what we perceive, what we see today from the modern technological advancements and the digital, I call it the digitization of mankind experience.
Right.
It's digitizing the experience of mankind.
Yeah.
We see that as a grave danger. With our perception, despite the apparent benefits that people could argue it could bring,
Mm-hmm.
the human experience is not all about sight and sound. Modern tools transmit sight and sound perfectly. High definition images, high definition audio, zero definition spirits. There is no spiritual transmission that takes place through the digital technology. So on its face, the connection, the communication is growing. So take, for example, two family members, a mother and a daughter living in two different places. The modern technology advancement allows them to talk every day.
Right.
Sometimes they talk for hours every day on the phone. But the warmth between them, the love in their hearts, is decreasing with every phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It is going down because part of the fruit, the fruit of the human experience,
Right.
is a result of a physical and emotional efforts. So you have to put a physical and an emotional effort to get the fruit, right? So it is not the same, in our opinion, for somebody to grow a tree
Right.
himself, water it, look after it, and then pluck fruit out of that tree and taste it. It's not the same as if he goes out to the supermarket and picks the same fruit.
Right.
It is totally different. That's how the human experience developed over years. The mother who bears a child for months and months goes through a lot of pain, a lot of challenges, and by the time the baby's born, those challenges are part of what forms that love. If that child was emailed to her, she wouldn't have the same feeling. So it's a very big topic, and I'd like to be our viewers to get some benefits from this discussion with the permission of Allah. The first impact that I see is the digitization of the human experience equals the dehumanization of the human experience. Converting our experience as mankind into an experiment. Converting the experience that we participate in into an experiment that we participate in. Converting that magnificent, sophisticated, emotional, and spiritual being that Allah has created to be His deputy. People forget that the objective of Allah's creation, Allah created you to be His deputy.
Mm-hmm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in numerous locations and numerous verses in the Quran, stating it clearly. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, I shall place a deputy of mine.
Right.
And He wants that deputy to be happy.
Yeah.
And He wants that deputy to live a good life. So Allah wants to see you happy. Allah wants you to be in good condition.
Right.
The digitization of that experience amputates a lot of the elements. The spirit element, the tactile element, what you feel with your hands, with the senses, the nerves. This is not transmitted. This is not coming. You can look at a beautiful picture of a place in a tropical island. And now people decide on vacations based on imagery. They'll pick the place that has the most lush green, beautiful palm trees, and they'll actually spend money, and they fly there. And when they arrive, they say, nobody said in the picture that it was humid. We didn't know that there was humidity. Well, because humidity is part of the human experience, part of the six senses that is not being transmitted. Digitization of the human experience equals dehumanization of the human experience, equals the transmission of what I call 2/6 of the real picture, leading to half educated, half knowledgeable, half scholars, half doctors. Everybody's a doctor.
Right.
You know, everybody goes to the doctor, had researched his or her case, the medications that are available, and starts debating with the physician. And probably, I have a friend who actually was telling me that the patients sometimes that were going to one doctor he knows would come to him with more information than the doctor has. And the doctor says to them, so I don't have time. Either I sit in my clinic and treat patients,
Right.
or I sit on one of the search engines to look up the latest articles that you are looking at. So this, in my opinion, the digitization, dehumanization, amputation of the human experience is extremely dangerous. The other thing, so this is the first danger, and I will highlight the big hazards. The second part is the destruction of the most valuable human qualities. And I will explain. Human beings have qualities that are not given to any other creature. For example, we
Go ahead.
for example, we have a quality called patience
Yeah.
as mankind. Patience is a very important quality of mankind. The current digital revolution targets, aims at, and destroys the quality of patience. If you look back not so long ago, 20, 30 years ago, one would see that you could write a letter by post, send it to somebody, which was taking some time,
Right.
wait for an answer to come.
Yeah.
During that period, you had to be patient. There's nothing you can do. If you were traveling, or one of your dear family members were traveling from, let's say, America to Asia,
Yeah.
the trip would take 2 to 3 days. And by the time they would arrive at their destination, it would already be a few days before they can actually contact their families to explain, to tell them that they are safe. During that period, the traveler and the family had to be patient.
Right.
If you were doing business with another continent that was on a different time zone, and different weekend schedule. Some countries have Friday and Saturday as weekend, others Thursday and Friday, others only Friday, and others Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So you would send a request and have to wait for 3-4 days before you get an answer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that patience quality led to the evolution of other good qualities, like, for example, contemplation, like reflection.
Right.
Man had time to reflect on his actions and reactions. The modern digital era
Yeah.
targets and focuses on directly on destroying these qualities. If you carry in your hand a telephone,
Yeah.
which is so-called smartphone, and I do not endorse that name really, because it implies that the person who carries that phone is not smart
Right.
somehow. So he needs a smart device to think for him, and act for him, and plan for him.
Right.
He needs a device to tell him when to call his parents, and when to go to school, and what to eat. And I've seen some people actually who stand up in the middle of a meeting and say that the phone told me that I have to stand up for my health. And if you use these tools, the foundation, the very foundation of these tools
Right.
is to get an immediate, instantaneous response. Quick gratification. Ask a question, get the answer. And they officially publicize this, bragging about the how fast, in a fraction of a second, you got your answer. So we're better. And now, that letter that took a month to get a
Right.
response has to be answered immediately. It used to be about a few years ago. It used to be during work hours because you would send an email, get a response. Now it's going to be instantaneous. And as it does that, it plows right into all the privacies of mankind. Everything. Destroys life inside the house. Destroys the sleep cycle. Destroys the family connection over the dining table. You know, and causes an immediate sense of urgency, almost, and to the degree where I could call it an information incontinence, a degree where people are unable to wait. And if you don't respond, you'll get another message, and then a telephone call, and people are asking, I sent you a message yesterday, the day before, I sent you a message an hour ago, you didn't see it? Well, guess what? I'm not glued to the telephone. And that destruction of that quality of patience is one of the very apparent and clear results of modern day technologies. Another quality that is completely destroyed is the ability of a human being to be present in the moment. There is no presence now. People sitting on a dining table, and they're not eating. They're looking at their phones. They're being fed through the table, like an IV tube in the hospital, but they're really not on the table. And they're not with the people that they're talking to on the phone. People are walking, sleepwalking, or phone walking, what I call it, or phone driving. They're in the street, physically. You can take a photo of them and say, our brother or sister was on that street in that day, on that hour. But truly, he's not on the street. He's inside that virtual world. And he's not on the other side as well. So he's not with the people he's talking to, and he's not with the people he is with. So there is no presence. So where is that man or woman? It's a very important question. That man or woman is trapped in the digital circuits of that world, of that virtual fake world. Destruction of presence, destruction of patience are some of the most critical and hazardous outcomes of modern day technology and digitization of the world. The impact of that on the human ability to comprehend has been documented through studies. I've read a study recently about people reading two groups, a control group, it's a scientific study, two groups reading an article on their computers. One group had the article with hyperlinks in it. A hyperlink is something you can click on that will take you to another topic to explain what that word or that phrase means. And the other exact article had no hyperlinks. And they had the two groups read, and both the ones that had the hyperlinks were not allowed to click on the hyperlinks. So all it did is just showed these words in blue. And after that, they've done a study conducted questions to see how much of the two groups comprehended the article. Almost everyone in the article that had no blue words, hyperlinks, answered the questions correctly. And over 40%, almost 40% of the people that read the article with the blue words got their answers wrong. very strange. It basically says that the human thought process cannot be distracted, and that distraction of the thought process by just opening possibilities as you try to read through causes a drop in the comprehension level, in the outcome, to a degree of about 40%. Now apply this to our schools. Apply this to our children who are now, instead of being asked to go to the library, pick a few books, take their notes, write it, then write it on a piece of paper, prepare some written outcome of their effort, and you will see that this is causing deep destruction through the lives, the scientific, the scholarly life of mankind collectively. The biological hazards is something else that is quite important, but I reckon that it won't be public right now. It's similar to when cigarettes were in the 60s seen by many doctors and others as it doesn't cause any harm. And today the scientific community and the whole world is putting these stickers on every cigarette box saying, this will kill you. I think, not in the very far future, you will get stickers on some of these digital devices that will say, this may cause serious disturbance to your child, to your teenager. This may cause serious damage to certain areas of your brain if you use it for more than this much. Let alone that there has never been a serious international or national study on the impact of the communication, the microwave communication protocols that are being used to get your device, whether it's a computer or a telephone, to communicate with the transmission towers. There has never been a study, a longitudinal study, which means a 5-year, 10-year study that looks at the health hazards and impacts that this could have on a human being, whether it is in the form of destroying or tampering with the nervous system of a human being, and the impact of that on senile people, on infants, on newborns, and how does that impact the growth and the development of the brain. No serious effort has been taking place to study the impact of such technologies on that. So biological hazards, destruction of critical and important human qualities, and the dehumanization, the digitization of the human experience, which leads to man changing into machine. And they said in the past that you can tell me who your friends are and I will tell you who you are. And if your friend is a device that is heartless, that is senseless, unfortunately we would be turning into that clone of that device. And indeed, for those of you who are listening to us, you can now have a moment of reflection. Look in your phone, open that telephone and look at it, and it is you. It is you. It's got the news you watch, and it has next to the news the azan if you're praying, and next to it the stock pricing, next to the azan and the Quran, right next to it, and next to it it could be having your YouTube channels next to the Quran. I mean, we're supposed to revere the Quran and respect it and not put it. What is the fatwa on taking the digital Quran into the bathroom? Does that work? We don't know. And the scholars are unfortunately light years away from discussing these matters as far as I can see. But I would like to end by saying that that phone, which represents a bag of confusion, that is representing the internal confusion that we have with all these apps and emails and messages and telephones right there. Once the screen goes, as you look at it, into a power-saving mode, and you no longer see the vivid, colorful, digital dancing picture around it, and you look in it closely, you will see your face. This is who you really are, not what's in the phone. And the day you dim down and tune down that digital Disneyland you live in, you're going to start to see who you really are, and you'll be able to fix how you look and how you feel and come back to life, because we want you alive. We don't want you. We want you on live, not online. That's what it is.
Sheikh, Jazakallah khair, it was so vast and so profound. We take a short break, dear viewers. I'm sure we're going to hear more about this to conclude this session. I was just, not here listening, and it was amazing, Sheikh. I will be right back with you, viewers. Digitization.
Electricity.
Alhamdulillah. Dear viewers, we are back with Dr. Tamer, as I said, as a well-known personality and figure, mashallah. Anytime he comes in, he leaves a lot of good stuff for us to use and get benefit out of it. So we are following the discussion of digitization that he brought up. Actually, it was a very, very interesting subject and also a very critical subject at this point. Sheikh, if I bring that picture from generality, bring it back to the family life and our kids and our children right now, every kid has a phone in their hand and the iPad or whatever is that, and they're playing with that, and the parents, to pacify their children, they give that by purpose. Say, why you do that? They say, well, let them be quiet, let them be, don't bother us and stuff like this, escape. What's your advice for family? Because a lot of people watching our family, group of people watching our TV, what's your advice, and how are we going to just analyze that as far as damages the kids, get from this?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, this is a very touchy subject, obviously, because all the respected viewers who have children, Muslims, non-Muslims, are suffering. And I'd like to explain one of the aspects, because our meeting today, time does not allow us to go in depth. I always ask Allah to allow me to leave the audience with a thought to reflect deeply on. I'll explain what I call the stimulation inhibition axis. This is very important for people to understand. Stimulation inhibition neurological axis. To put it in simple words, if you're sitting and something is about to fall next to you, normally human beings quickly get up to save that glass or bottle or book. The falling item is a stimulant. The response is what the brain tells the body it has to do. This is normal and natural process. So if somebody had a car accident and you were driving by or you were walking, that becomes the stimulant. The reaction is for you to get out and try to help that person. If somebody is drowning, you would stretch your hand and help him. If there was, God forbid, a fire, you quickly try to go and respond to that fire. This is how Almighty God created the brain of mankind, to protect him and his surroundings from damage and hazards. Now, the same falling glass, the same drowning man, the same car accident, when that takes place inside a digital, virtual world in front of the eyes of the viewer, the brain has the same response. So if you see somebody on the screen drowning, the brain immediately triggers the response for you to get up and save that person. Or something falling, you want to say, or some explosion on the screen, as we see the amount of sheer violence and what I call visual terrorism that we're going through right now. It is visual terrorism. Our children are being, and ourselves are being attacked by visual terrorists. Because if people think that when you watch a movie where 100 people get killed and their body parts fly about and the blood is all over the screen, if they think that is not terrorism, they need to get their brains examined. Because the body and the brain, as soon as we see these things, starts to respond. If it is an explosion, the brain sends to the body a signal to escape or to go put out this fire. If it is somebody drowning, then go help him. If an animal is attacking, then run away. But what happens when you watch that in a virtual, sort of say, but fake world, is that another response, another axis develops in your brain that's an inhibition axis. So it tells you, don't respond. So you're about to get out and run because an animal or a beast is attacking you. Then the brain sends another conflicting signal to inhibit you, to say to you, this is not real, stop. So what happens is, stop. Don't go and rescue that drowning man, it's just a movie. Don't go and put out that fire, it's just a fake. So what you're going through as this experience, or as I said, experiment takes place, is stimulation, inhibition. Stimulation, inhibition. It is exactly like as if you're starting and stopping your car 1,000 times a minute as you sit in front of and interact with these tools. What that does is that it builds a massive charge into the brain and the body.
Wow.
A massive energy that was supposed to come out in the form of a response, a reflex we call it. But reflex didn't come out.
Right.
So that reflex now is a trapped energy. That's the first thing. The second thing is when you see the man drowning, really, in reality, you are now apathic. So you're not going to go and help him. And that's why we are seeing some levels of sickness where some people are actually shooting videos of dying people and putting it on YouTube. That's how low mankind is reaching now. They're watching and shooting videos of people killing themselves or killing others, and they're only concerned about the digitization of the death experience and putting it on YouTube rather than helping them. That human being who lost the very quality that made him human has lost it because he's been living in that virtual world of stimulation inhibition for long. So two things come out. Massive trapped energy and a great amount of apathy to real life situation. For any of you who are watching this, you could just test yourself as you sit on your dining table for dinner or lunch or iftar in Ramadan, and you are sitting and watching as the news channel is broadcasting real imagery and videography of people suffering because of an earthquake, a collapsed building, an explosion, and children, parts are sometimes shown on TV where they are torn apart and women are crying and screaming, and at the same scene the family is continuing its dinner, and if it's a Muslim family with practicing and praying Muslims, they may say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, hand me the mustard or the sauce. So it has not, while if you see someone with his or her blood in front of you, you may not, the trauma may prevent you from eating and drinking for 2 to 3 days. The sheer scene. But what has happened now is that people have become so apathic to the degree that they don't feel anything. They don't differentiate between the news broadcast that shows people suffering from a massive earthquake that destroyed their homes and the film that shows an earthquake that destroyed their homes. It's the same. It's coming through the same tool, through the same screen. And the apathy leads to a digital response. So you will see people fundraising online to help the people of country X that are going through a disaster. But did you know that, and I know some people who are in some of those crisis zones. There is a crisis in Asia that's taken place in the past couple of months. And I know a person who went there and found stacks and heaps of AIDS piled up, but not reaching to the refugees. Because there are no people to do the job. Everybody has donated, mashallah, online.
Right.
But nobody is willing to take a flight and go and touch that orphan or help that woman or cook for somebody or treat them. Nobody wants to do that.
Right.
I'll give money online at any time. At the end of the day, it's all a digital experience.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is I'm clicking on my bank account. I've seen a bunch of digits that entered my eye, and I've sent them a couple of digits from my bank account. That's how it's been working. That apathy and the charge of negative energy or extra energy is so manifest in our children. For the parents who take away the telephone from their children, and I have seen it with my own eyes. I was on a flight not so long ago from one country to the other, and I saw a child, or a young child, probably 3 years old. And the father took the phone away from him on the flight. I don't know, maybe because we had to switch off the phone. And the child exploded with the strongest slap on the face of the father that everybody heard. I had to turn around to look what happened. And that little child on the lap of his parent slapped him so strongly as a response. That's the energy we talk about.
Right.
So next time you take that from your child, or you switch off the screen and they start jumping in the house like demons or popcorns, and you're unable to control them, now you know the stimulation inhibition axis, neuronal axis that's taking place in their brains. And their poor kids, you cause that to them. Because they cannot, their brains are fresh. They're still not trained to differentiate between the fake world and the real world. Up until maybe the age of 6, the child does not know what is real and what is imaginary. So the brain sees something happening and wants to respond. Then you tell them this is not real, inhibits it, energy is accumulating, and they explode. And the cycle becomes vicious, because then the parents, if they don't give that pacifier to the child will destroy the house. And they cannot take him anywhere. They cannot go out with their children anymore. So this is the foundation for everybody to understand this. So there is a direct relationship between the number of hours you expose yourself and your children to this venom and the level of agitation that your family will experience and also express. The other part, which is the apathy part, manifests itself in the currently endemic level of depression people have. Everybody's depressed to a certain level. I would say that the antidepressant drugs are box office hits right now. Everybody's on antidepressants, and I know that, because of that accumulation of apathy. Because the apathy leads to people not tasting life, and that is depression. A depressed human being is a human being that cannot find any taste for life anymore. Okay? And this comes from many reasons and many causes, but technology is a main player. And what we're seeing is an unprecedented level of childhood depression.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, for the people who may be listening that are technical, is that it's not the actual diagnosis of childhood depression, it's all the diseases, all the neurological diseases that have an element of childhood depression in it. And those are various and multiple. In our children, a child by default, by the Almighty God, is immune to getting depression. Why? Because a child has a stronger imaginary faculty than a logical faculty. So extra logic, just for you to understand, extra logic, extra planning, extra digits, depression. Less of all of these, more imagination, no way you could get depression. And the child is an imaginary creature. He's coming to this world with absolute vivid imagination about everything. And what the technology does is it kills that instantaneously and slowly. And that leads to a very high level of childhood psychological disorders. We have a great number of children that need help, clinical psychological help right now. So, obviously the easiest answer to the advice is stay away.
Stay away.
Very simple answer, but easier said than done. I know what people are going through. We're going to get to a point where if you do not have a specific application on your phone, you can't access your money in the bank. Already the world is going through to paperless. Again, all these words that are big in meaning, but they imply another hidden hazard. So we're gonna get to these levels. So it is becoming a must for somebody to have a phone with them. But there are a few tips that we can probably give to our beloved brothers and sisters and listeners, respected listeners. Don't you ever allow a telephone on a dining table. You are Muslims. Please show some respect to Allah's gift on you, that food. Show some respect. You don't put your phone on the table. You don't allow your child to put his phone on the table. That's obviously if you gave him a phone, which we mentioned that it's best if you can, if you shouldn't give him. And if you have to give him, you have to delay it. Delay it as much as possible. Talk to your child about why do you need a phone. Get him a normal phone line so that he can call his friends or she can call her friends. But delay the damage. Some people say to me, what good is it if I don't give my child at the age of 10 or 12 a telephone? He's going to get it anyways when he goes to university. Yes, but he'll be mature then. The damage will be different. This is a construction site. This is a growing body and mind. And you've just planted a bomb in that construction site. It will be deformed forever. You've caused a permanent disability of that child that you are going to be answering to Allah for by giving him that phone, that device. So do not put that on the table. Provide them with some alternatives in the form of going out and having normal activities in life. And I tell you something, your child is very smart. Your son and daughter, teenage or otherwise, are very smart. They won't believe you if you tell them that, and you yourself are simply a dedicated slave to your digital devices. You're a slave to it. They see you coming in, and before you say Salaam alaikum, you're glued with your head bowing down in a position similar to the ruku', to this device. We do not bow down to anyone other than Allah. Allah describes the people who will get up from the graves in the condition of extreme fear of what is going to happen at the time of taking their accounts. It describes them as khashi'atan absaruhum. Their gaze is low, heads are down. And we have so many resurrected zombies now that are walking the streets of our lives. We see them all the time, in airports, in schools. So keep the device away from the table. Keep these devices away from the bedroom. If the child has to work on a computer, ask him to do it in the living room or on a table, dining table, but not on the bed. Do not allow other people to go to bed with your child.
Yes.
And when you carry this into the bed on the pillow, you are committing a big mistake, and you will pay for it. And the payment is going to be in the form of pain, agony, and sorrow. Then, before and after, be a role model for them. So how do I handle it? I am now entrapped in this cobweb. How do I get out of it? Reduction of your activities within the cobweb. When an insect falls into the web of a spider, the first thing the insect should do if it wants to set itself free is stop moving. And so it is when you fall into the web as well. The World Wide Web now. Because it's a very big web of a big spider, black spider. If you have to have a one email account, you don't need to have 5. You don't need to tell the world that you're going to sleep now on Facebook. We don't care. Nobody wants to know that. If you want to reduce, if you want to be online, but be very light. As much light as needed. As the fuqaha said, the jurist says, they always say to us, الضرورات تقدر بقدرها. يعني necessities are to be assessed as per the necessary. So what makes it necessary for you to be in that place? Use it. So I need the minimum. I need that website. I need that email to make a living for the time being. I don't need to have anything on top of that. And I close with saying that just as some people say, I'd like to give the freedom to my children. I want to trust them, right? So I'm not going to put parental control on their devices because I raised a good child and I want to show him that I trust him through this positive education or other terms that are very fancy, as I say, in meaning, but they are very false at the level of truth. But I want to say to you, even if you trust your child or son or daughter, teenage or younger, would you trust to take your child to a world carnival or festival or a very big shopping center with thousands of people going from every walk of life, and you drop him in the shopping center and you walk away and you say, I'll come and pick you up in an hour? Everybody will unanimously say, of course not. I will go and say, why? Why aren't you trusting your child? I trust my child, but I don't know these people. In the same way, do you know all these apps that your child are putting in? Do you know all the people he's talking to and walking with online? Do you know everything that they do? You don't know. So why do you take your child to that place and leave him unattended for? And then claim that it's a matter of faith or trust. It is not. This is absolute foolishness. Nobody in his right or her right mind would leave their minor unattended. People now, we see cases and we see people going to jail because they left their child in the parking lot. Parking lot is 10,000 times more safe than the World Wide Web. Much more safe. And yet people are handing over their children. And this is not a Muslim problem. This is not a Muslim problem.
Right.
And I would like to say at the end that our argument here is that the world is coming to a point where people with spirit, faith, values of all religions are facing a relentless attack from ethicless, spiritless, faithless,
Yes.
digital form of civilization that is attacking them. And that is why we as Muslims need to put hand in hand with all the faithful from all over the world to say no and to create space for our children, to create space for our families to be normal, to be human beings once again. And remember that this war will never be won by our intelligence or logic or planning. This is a war between unequal forces. The only way the right side, your side of the scale, can go down is if the massive divine weight is put on your side of the scale. So depend on him, go back to him, ask him to guide you, guide your children, protect you, protect your family from this tsunami that is washing away humanity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to do the right thing, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I'm overwhelmed what I heard. I'm speechless, because wallahi it's all true. Dear viewers, this is the last part of our session. I thank you and may Allah bless you, Sheikh, for being with us and share this kind of unique information. I hope our viewers got benefit. Inshallah, maybe if Allah gave us time and another breath, we can get together and talk about another subject in a few days that you're here, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's fine. Sheikh got this.